Welcome back to the Reading Corner with Mrs. G. For more great stories, subscribe here. We have lots of Arthur stories. Today we're going to learn about Arthur's nose. But before we take a look at this book, there are other books in the Reading Corner with Mrs. G. Arthur's Hiccups, Arthur the School Pet. We have books like this, Sir Arthur to the Rescue, Queen for a Day. Notice the way that Arthur looks in these books. This is kind of how we expect him to look, but he didn't always look like that. So we're going to find out what happens in this story with Arthur's nose. It's one of the very first stories by Marc Brown. And in this we have some information about Arthur, so you can skip on ahead to the story, or and then at the very end I'll read this letter as well and give you a closer look at these pictures. But just some information. Take a look at these noses. Those are all Arthur. Really? Yeah, those are all Arthur. So Marc Brown made him look different through the years. This is how he kind of started him off with in 1976. And then in 1980, notice his nose. 1983, 1987, 1993, and 2000. This is kind of how we expect him to look. But he didn't always look like that. So in the story today, his nose looks like this. Different, huh? All right, some fun facts about Arthur. Arthur lives in Elwood City, and he's in the 3rd grade at Lakewood Elementary School. Arthur has a pet named Pal, and we have several stories about Pal. I know he loses him in this story. His favorite TV show is the Bionic Bunny show, and I know that when we try to get Arthur's attention, you can see in some of these stories he talks about watching the Bionic Bunny show. Muffy is one of his friends. Her real name is Mary. The Brain's real name is Alan. Did you know that? Sue Ellen is a karate expert. Arthur has a teddy bear named Stanley. D.W., his little sister, has an imaginary friend named Nadine. Arthur's grandma Thora has a dog named Killer who likes to lick people. Muffy and Francine have the same middle name, Alice. D.W. stands for, do you know what it stands for? D.W. stands for Dora Winifred. Prunella has an older sister named Rubella. Is it Rubella measles? Binky is repeating in the 3rd grade. Fern loves poetry. Mr. Ratburn, the teacher, and we have several of those, including Teacher Trouble and when the teacher moves in. Mr. Ratburn's desk is full of secret drawers. Francine's greatest fear is having to wear a dress. Arthur and his friend's favorite hangout is the Sugar Bowl. In some of the stories you find him coming out or going into the Sugar Bowl, place where they get some snacks. The Brain wants to be the first person on Mars when he grows up. And Buster plays the tuba in the school orchestra. Did you know those things? Well, again, I'll give you a closer look at some of these pictures at the end. But let's go ahead and read what happens in this short story about Arthur's nose by Marc Brown. Okay, again, you'll notice some of the pictures look different. This is Arthur's house. This is Arthur. He is worried about his nose. This is Arthur's mom. This is Arthur's dad. And this is Arthur's sister. They all love Arthur, and they all like his nose. Achoo! One day, Arthur decided he didn't like his nose. He had a cold and his nose was red. His sister thought his nose looked funny. His nose was a nuisance at school. Francine, who sat in front of Arthur, complained to the teacher that Arthur's nose was always bothering her. "I want to change my seat." When Arthur played hide and seek, friends always found him first. I can see his nose. Sniff. His friends thought his nose was funny, but what could he do about it? Sniffle. He could change his nose. That's what he could do about it. Arthur told his friends that he was going to the rhinologist for a new nose. His friends were very surprised. Dr. Louise was very helpful. She suggested that Arthur try on pictures of different noses. That way, he could choose the one that he liked best. Sniff, sniff. Arthur tried on all kinds of noses. Chicken, fish, elephant, koala bear, hippopotamus, armadillo, toucan. What do you think? This was going to be a difficult decision. Goat, rabbit, mouse, zebra, alligator, rhinoceros. Which one would you choose? Arthur's friends waited outside to see which nose he would choose. I wonder what his new nose will look like. Do you think it'll look better than mine? I'm going to miss Arthur's old nose. I can't believe it. It's Arthur. Wow. Maybe he won't want to play with us. Arthur hadn't changed his nose at all. I tried on every nose there was. I'm just not me without my nose, said Arthur. It's a nice nose. I still want to change my seat at school. There's a lot more to Arthur than his nose. What do you think? What do you think about his nose? Let's go back to this page where again it shows the progression of how the author and the artist changed his nose over time. And the author artist wrote this letter to you, so if you want to listen, here it is. Dear families and friends, every child needs someone who believes in him or her and offers unconditional love. For me, that was my Grandma Thora. Ah, there really was a Grandma Thora. She encouraged my imagination and love of drawing. Without her, Arthur would not exist. As I tell children and adults when they ask where I get my adult ideas, the best things happen in real life. All of the Arthur characters really existed. I wanted to thank my family, teachers, and friends for inspiration. Many of the early books reflect the predicaments my own children were then dealing with in their lives. Now that Talon, Tucker, and Eliza have outgrown Arthur and D.W., I do a lot of eavesdropping and observing, looking for issues families will find helpful in some way. When I'm writing the Arthur books, I'm writing for children, but I also have adults in mind. I don't really think of myself as a children's book author, but rather an author of books for families. Arthur has given me a special connection to families all over the world. And I want you to know I never take that relationship and trust for granted. Every morning, when I go to work in the barn behind our house, I feel like the luckiest man alive because I'm doing what I love to do. The past 25 years have provided many satisfying adventures for Arthur and D.W., and I must confess, tagging along has been a terrific adventure for me as well. Marc Brown, and he lived in Massachusetts. So isn't that great? I thought it was a lot of fun to find out a little bit of the history of Arthur and how his stories came to be and his nose as well. All right, so we'll see you in the next time for a great story about Arthur in the Reading Corner with Mrs. G.